Hello, and in today's video we are doing the first of a Christmas series. It's, yes, the most wonderful time of the year. It is the 6 days of YouTube Robertumus. Yes, that's right, FPL Yellow Army here, reporting for duty. And this is the first video of 6 that we'll do across the festive period. And the schedule can be found on my Instagram and Twitter at Roberto Hollis 9, and then on Instagram Roberto_the_pro. This is basically the first of many, but on this one video today we're going to be doing a look at my first draft. Yes, I've opened up the app finally, and I've suddenly got to make a team ready for game week 17, Boxing Day's fixtures, because the Premier League is on its way back. The resumption of the league after the World Cup took place, and this is my squad. So it's as simple as that. We're going to show you what my team is, how much money I've got in the bank, and what I can play around with. So the first thing that I thought was, going into this second half of the FPL season, a key thing will be flexibility. Now, I don't have everyone that I would love to own in this one team, unfortunately, because as is the case with FPL all the time, as much as it's tempting, you can't own everyone. So you can't have, all the best players, because there just isn't the budget for that. So you have to make some compromises here and there, but the majority of it is about having a strong squad that you're happy with, and I'm very happy with this first draft. Of course, I'm calling it a first draft because it's very likely to change before the deadline, which is Boxing Day at 11 o'clock a.m. So I will come out with a final FPL preview for game week number 17, and that will come out on Monday at 11 o'clock. So stay tuned for that one on the FPL Yellow Army channel. But in today's one, let's talk through my first draft. So pre-World Cup, I had in goal a bit of Vicente Guaita, and he didn't really deliver as well as I would have hoped. I mean, he got a couple of nice scores in a couple of game weeks here and there, but it really was slim pickings, and I always struggle to know what to do with a goalkeeper, because in my head I'm like, it's not an important position to choose, but I often do get hung up on it, so I shouldn't get too downhearted. But I have got Danny Ward, who I think is a lock in our 15s going into this second half of the season, because at the end of the day, his fixtures are still very decent, and for a backup goalie, he is so good. It's just a shame you have to bench him, and then he can often punish you, but that's not going to happen every week. I think that he's just great value still. So Danny Ward is on my bench. But who have I got starting? Well, David De Gea is currently in there just because of the fixtures for Manchester United. When we come back from this break, we have got Nottingham Forest, Wolves and Bournemouth as FPL managers to look at for Manchester United players. So I'm not sure what we do really with the goalkeeping situation, but just playing it by fixtures, that makes the most sense, because even when Manchester United's fixtures do turn in game week 20, game week 21, we've got Danny Ward to come in with great fixtures. So they rotate quite nicely, David De Gea and Danny Ward. The problem I've got is that Manchester United as a defence, of the top 6 teams, probably along with Chelsea, fill me with the least confidence. I mean, I say along with Chelsea. Liverpool have been pretty defensively poor as well, but Manchester United don't massively convince me. The good thing is with David De Gea is that if Manchester United are under fire, he loves a lot of saves and therefore save points. But he's not one for many clean sheets, David De Gea, and he doesn't get the most bonus points you'll ever see. So he's actually not that high scoring when you compare to other goalkeepers around his price. You've got Ramsdale, who is very much 6 points a base, and he doesn't get much higher than that, but he is on more points than David De Gea so far. You've got Pope, who gets loads of bonus points. You've got Alisson, who obviously does make a lot of saves, even if Liverpool aren't keeping clean sheets. So I just can't really justify spending more than 5 million, to be honest, on a goalkeeper. When money is so precious. I mean, I say it's so precious. There's a lot of money around this season, with Haaland being the main one, and then your premiums you have to choose wisely. But even with that, I think it's just not worth overthinking it. Nottingham Forest are a team that haven't been scoring a lot of goals, and Manchester United slowly but surely starting to get a bit better. So great fixture to target there at home for the clean sheet for David De Gea, but we shall see if he ends up being my final goalkeeper. So he would be replacing Vicente Guaita in that pre-wildcard World Cup team. Okay, moving on to our defence there, we got Kieran Trippier. Now, the reason I have got Kieran Trippier is very, very simple. Newcastle's fixtures are still very good, but Kieran Trippier's attacking potential is far too good to turn down, and he is just, honestly, a legend this season. So, for me, I would say he goes into the essential category for any FPL manager this season. You've got to have Trippier. It's as simple as that. He's so attacking, and Newcastle this season have been superb, mainly down to this guy, who just picks up bonus points like there's no tomorrow. And Leicester City away is not the easiest of fixtures. So, you can look at that and say Maddison or Daka or Vardy could possibly score, but we're not really owning for Trippier for that clean sheet potential. It's more for the attacking threat that Trippier provides. And even when Newcastle concede, Trippier can sometimes get bonus points, or has been on some occasions, Newcastle conceded late and Trippier gets subbed off early. That's always nice to see, provided, of course, that Newcastle do play him for enough minutes for him to get the clean sheet. But for me, I think he is of a very small list on the essential list for any FPL manager. Joao Cancelo is bordering on essential, in my opinion, but I've seen a lot of people go without him in their game week 17 drafts, mainly because you look at that City team, you think the Pep roulette is still a thing. Will City play Cancelo every single week? Well, more often than not, I think he will play. But when you think about the fact you're trying to fit in other premiums and other City players, like Kevin De Bruyne, like Phil Foden, then maybe there's a case for going without a Man City defender. And because Cancelo is 7.2 million, just getting someone else like Reece James, who has, of course, got a double game week in game week number 19, to just save a bit of money and redistribute the cash. But for me, Joao Cancelo is very hard to replace in your defence because he's the only real premium this season in defence that's delivered. Trent Alexander-Arnold's been really disappointing. Liverpool defence has not been good, and Trent has not got a lot of attacking returns. Joao Cancelo, though, has picked up a fair amount of clean sheets because it's one of the best defences in the league. So Cancelo is one of the few premium defenders that's actually been worth his price tag, and he's got such haul potential, especially away to Leeds, who defensively are very, very suspect. Cancelo whips in across and has got some great link-up play. So I think Cancelo, for me, is definitely, a strong possibility. So it would be hard to go without him at the moment. We've also got Ben White in there. Now, 4.7 million. I would prefer Gabriel from Arsenal, to be honest, if I had the money. But I'm just thinking right now, I know I've got 2.9 in the bank, but there is a reason for that, which I'll come to. Ben White, though, generally is a very solid option. Very good kind of budget pick and a nice budget way into that Arsenal defence. You think he's going to play most weeks often than not. I mean, obviously they've got Tomiyasu and they've got Tierney as options and Zinchenko, but I think White can slot into that centre-back role alongside Gabriel, and then obviously Saliba will be coming back late from the World Cup with France, so maybe White will get enough minutes, with often Tierney being injured, and I think he's going to be most of the games, so I don't think you have to worry about White, but if you want a bit more attacking potential, then Gabriel is definitely better. And then looking at midfielders, Rashford, for me, is a really tasty option. I did actually go for him in my pre-Game Week 7 wildcard, which, of course, I wasn't to know back then that then a few days later, all the matches would get postponed after the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. So Rashford is a player who I actually wildcarded into, hoping to get him and get the points from him. And that was when I made my no Salah wildcard team. And of course, you'll notice there's no Salah here as well. But mainly with Manchester United, as I said with David De Gea, it's targeting those fixtures and then very much it looking like a nice option to move on Rashford around game week 20 when United's fixtures aren't as good and there is some nice double game weeks for the likes of Manchester City, possibly, presuming that they, in the FA Cup, do in fact either win or lose against Chelsea. If they draw, then that puts that double game week in despair. And then obviously Spurs have Portsmouth as well in the FA Cup, so they have to hopefully win or lose and not draw, so that would have been a replay. That is not exactly what you want for the double game week, but we shall see on that front. But it's always good to be ready if that happens. Now, Rashford has been superb over the World Cup with England, and Nottingham Forest are definitely one of the worst defences and the best defences to target. So I think Rashford, for me, is looking really nice. Still under 20% owned, which, to be fair, by deadline probably won't be, but he's still at a relative differential. And, you know, it's quite hard to commit to one of those 8 million midfielders right now when you've got people like Phil Foden, who is just not as nailed. You've got Kulusevski, who, you know, is good, but he's only just come back from injury. And, you know, how long will he be in the team? I know Richarlison is out injured, but Kulusevski doesn't offer the same attacking bite that maybe Rashford does when Rashford is playing so far forward alongside Martial now that Cristiano Ronaldo has left the club. So Rashford just seems a more enticing and attacking option for our midfields. So looks really decent, to be fair. Martinelli, a lot of people thinking about dropping him, and for me, it's just really hard to do that because I've got so much loyalty in this guy, but I've also got a bit of money and value stored up in him. When I got him at 6 million at the start of the season, I've had him all season, all through the wild cards. He's just not left my team because of how well he's done for such a great price. And honestly, he is just so integral to that Arsenal team. And with Gabriel Jesus out over the next few months, Martinelli is going to be even more important, playing alongside Bukayo Saka, possibly Nketiah. We'll see how many matches he plays, but you would imagine Arsenal might even get a new striker in January anyway. So look, Martinelli, for me, it's really hard for him to come out of the team. Arsenal's fixtures are not perfect, but they're also not the end of the world. You know, West Ham, Brighton coming up. But I just feel Martinelli is just too good value to ignore. You know, I could look at someone else like Ødegaard, but I just think Martinelli is better value and is probably more attacking. As good as Ødegaard has been, I just believe Martinelli is a better use of that money. Kevin De Bruyne, for me, it's very simple. When I look at that Man City fixture list, I'm absolutely drooling at the prospect of a triple City. Then I remember that Pep Guardiola is the manager of Manchester City, and they've got something crazy like 9 games, or is it 9 games? It might be 9 games, or 3 in basically the space of a very short space of time over January. So if that's the case, then you know Pep is going to do what he does best and rotate when he's got so many options. You got Jack Grealish obviously coming back a bit late from being in the quarterfinals with England, but he might come back in. You got Mahrez, who obviously had a complete break. You've also got Erling Haaland, and I think Kevin De Bruyne is just so good at supplying Erling Haaland that having those two together seems really nice. And also news of Islam Mezdier possibly missing that first game against Manchester City, so that would be really nice. And you look at the fixtures for Man City, and they've got some lovely ones, because as well as the fact they have a possible double game week in game week 20 and very likely game week 23 double, therefore you want to have possibly 3 City, but it's about who you pick. And De Bruyne is probably more nailed than Foden, but the key thing is, how much will he play? You know, how much will he be a better option than Mo Salah, for instance? Could I start with Salah and then switch to De Bruyne? But away to Leeds, I feel like that's such a good fixture to take advantage of, provided that, you know, De Bruyne can pack that punch. But we'll have to see. Almiron, for me, he was my kind of glaring error of the first half of the season, not getting him in. I delayed it. And even by game week 16, when they had Chelsea at home, and I thought, yeah, I mean, I won't be, you know, punished for not getting him in this late on. He gets another assist. I mean, he's just been a joke. And now I've got him in, I'm 100%, you know, guaranteed that Almiron won't get any goals, and it will just be back to the Almiron that we knew before this season. But look, at the end of the day, everyone's telling me to do it, and I agree with them. Almiron this season's been amazing, and Newcastle's fixtures aren't the best, but they're still not bad. For a player that's in form, I know he's had a complete break with Paraguay not in the World Cup, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to hinder him. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to benefit him. We just don't know. But based off what we've seen so far this season, Almiron is a player you just cannot not have with the price in consideration. Mitrovic, for me, is a very juicy own. Now, I would love to have someone else because ultimately Mitrovic can be frustrating to own ahead of the World Cup break. He was there in my team and he wasn't doing as well as I hoped, especially in that double game week, or that game week I should say, where Mitrovic had Forest away and Pereira had Forest away, and they just did absolutely nothing. Those kind of games, Mitrovic does frustrate. He does have a lot of chances, and he did score a couple of goals for Serbia at the World Cup. But for me, with the double game week coming up, it's just too good to refuse. Crystal Palace are a team that defensively have not been brilliant. They've been very up and down, and Mitrovic is just a target man. He creates chances for himself, and he has a lot of them. So ultimately, I think that's a pick that really does sell itself. Erling Haaland, obviously, number one essential in the world. You cannot go without Erling, and you just got to captain him every week. It's as simple as that. He is this season's Mohamed Salah, and I hope that Salah can get back to his best for his sake. But for me, perma-captain is still very much on Haaland, because Leeds, obviously, that's a game that means a bit much to him as well, with his dad obviously playing for Leeds. I don't know whether that will play a factor, but look, ultimately what does play a factor is how bad that Leeds defence is. They genuinely can be very, very leaky, and that's perfect for Erling Haaland when he's had the whole World Cup break off, and he'll be hopefully fully energised and rested to kind of be sharp and restored. Then Darwin Núñez. Now, this is a player I haven't owned this season, but it was kind of a bit of regret going into the kind of last couple of weeks that I didn't punt on him, but I generally couldn't afford it, so I had to go with Solanke instead. Look, Darwin is looking great in that Liverpool team right now. Liverpool's still not the full package, unfortunately not clicking perfectly. Salah was a bit of a frustrating own, but ultimately the last couple of game weeks before the World Cup told me that De Bruyne was a better pick than Salah, and I should have just stuck with that. But Salah is still great on his day. It's just that Núñez is having to be accommodated, so Núñez is playing quite central, and that's good for Núñez, because recently he's been doing well, and Darwin gets in the box, he gets on the end of things, and he's very, very lively. So, he's still under 20% owned. I think Darwin is a very popular option just because it allows you, if you want Triple City, to then still cover that Liverpool attack. The thing with Darwin is, though, obviously, normally he wouldn't be nailed, but with Jota and also with Luis Diaz out, that gives an option. So I think ahead of a nice fixture away to Aston Villa, that fixture really does sell itself for Liverpool, and I would want some Liverpool coverage, but it's just whether or not we go double Liverpool or not. That's the question. On the bench there, we've got Danny Ward, as I mentioned, Botman. The reason I've got Botman and not someone else is because I just don't want any bench regrets. Now, it's important to have a strong squad. I agree with that. But I could see Leicester scoring in that game. So therefore, Newcastle's defence is strong, and I like Botman as a cheap option. He's, a very good 4.4 enabler that you can bring in for a good home fixture if you're fancying a clean sheet, but maybe this is not the one. Then Andreas, for me, has to be in there, the best value midfielder in the game, and he's got a double game week coming up as well. And then Bueno. Bueno is just an enabler, really as cheap as you can get in the defence, and he actually has been starting. So he's not just any old awful player, he actually gets appearance points, which for a third bench player is all you really are looking for. So ultimately, that is the team. As I say, 2.9 in the bank, but for me, the focus has been on this first draft for Game Week 17 about flexibility, because if I at any point wanted to get to Reece James, who of course, as we know, has that double game week in Game Week 19 against Fulham and against Manchester City, granted, it's not the best double, as is a lot of these doubles coming up, but still, chances for double points, we don't mind that, and we love to attack the double game weeks. So we could bring in Reece James for Botman, with that money being used, Also, we could do Darwin to Harry Kane with that money being used. Now, obviously, it's going to be hard to fit all of these doubling players coming up in the next few weeks all in at once without taking out some money here or there. But my point is, most of these nice doubling options I could do in one move, which is used by that money that I've left in the bank. So it does give me options. I like the look of that midfield, although I could even go to a Saka or a Kulusevski or a Phil Foden if I think he's going to start ahead of the doubles. But really, I think the lack of Spurs is justified because they're just not really setting the world alight. And although Harry Kane has been consistent, with what happened at the World Cup, obviously that's going to play on his mind. It's not going to necessarily mean he's an awful player anymore, but I just wonder how will that affect him. And, really, we don't need a Spurs attacker. I don't think it's essential until around game week 20 you could look at Harry Kane because of the fact that he loves, scoring in these big value games and he's on penalties. But other than that, Kulusevski, yeah, he's an alright option, but would I prefer Rashford with better fixtures? Probably. So I just think right now it's probably the best play to go with this. But as I say, it's very likely to change. The regrets, of course, are probably that I can't have a front three of Darwin, Haaland and Kane. Because obviously, if I invest in Spurs, then that's all the bases covered. And I can always downgrade to Mitrovic, who has that double coming up later. But remember, Kane doubles in game week 20, the week after Mitrovic doubles. So do I really want to keep flipping between these different options and having to kind of book in a transfer? Or is it better to just have Mitrovic and hold him till game week 19? So that's my team. My first draft done. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Smash a like on it if you have enjoyed. Comment down below your thoughts. What would you change in this team? As I say, it's only my first draft, so a lot can change. But, I think there are a few players that are locked in this team. Probably Trippier, probably Cancelo, because I just don't see a world that I don't own him. Definitely Martinelli, just because I think he's just the best Arsenal attacker there is. And then Haaland. But the rest is all very much, likely to change or could change. And we shall see how it looks come the deadline on Monday, Boxing Day. Ho, ho, ho. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone. And let's hope that this point, points get really boosted to my team and it comes in. But just wanted to do an initial video really to give my first thoughts. And then we can really summarise and bring it all together before the deadline. But thanks for watching my first draft. I've been FPL Yellow Army, you've been Legends, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.